This is video 30 with supplemental information for lessons 3.5 and 3.6. Triangle classification. When you were in younger grade levels, you learned that triangles have different names depending on the properties of that triangle, like how long its sides are and what its angles measure. Now here we have a triangle. This side is 3 inches and this side is 3 inches. Let's measure the third side of this triangle. Oops, where'd it go? Looks here like we again have a side that is 3 inches. If all sides of this triangle are 3 inches long, what do we call this type of triangle? If you said an equilateral triangle, you're absolutely correct. An equilateral triangle has 3 sides that are all the same length. Let's measure the third side of this triangle. Whoa. It's going crazy on me. Whoa, stop. Wow, that was kind of interesting. Okay. It's not going to cooperate with me. So let's get it as close as we can. And we can probably figure out. Looks to me like it's meant to be 3 inches long. So here we have a triangle that has sides of 3 inches, 3 inches, and 4 inches. What do we call this type of triangle? This is a tough one for kids to remember. It's called an isosceles triangle. Isosceles triangles have 2 sides that are the same length. We're going to talk more about that kind of triangle in a little bit. Now we're being asked to draw a triangle with no congruent sides. Remember, congruent is another word for equal. So I need to have 3 sides that are different, thank you, different lengths. So how about that? That looks good. Okay, what do we call this type of triangle? Do you remember the name? A scalene triangle. Scalene triangles have 3 sides that are all different lengths. So let's take a look at what we remember about equilateral triangles. What do we know about the sides of an equilateral triangle? Think equilateral, equal. They have all 3 sides of equal length. And a lot of people don't realize this, but when the sides are all equal length, it means that the 3 angles will have the equal measure as well. So we have an equilateral triangle. Whoops, I meant to bring this one down. We have an equilateral triangle where it has 3 angles of equal measure and 3 sides of equal length. Now our isosceles triangle, remember, was the one that had 2 sides the same. So that one says no sides of equal length. So here's what we need to do is we need to put 2 sides of equal length by the isosceles, and the scalene has no sides of equal length. Now, just like the equilateral, the angles and the sides are related. So if there's no sides of equal length, it means that there will also be no angles of equal measure. And if there are two sides of equal length, that means there will be two angles of equal measure. The angles and the sides work together. So let's take a look at these triangles and let's decide if they're equilateral, isosceles, or scalene. Okay, I want you to try and think of it in your head before I label it. Here we have a triangle with sides of 11 units, 7 units, and 6 units. All three different. That is a scalene triangle. Okay, let's take a look at this triangle here. We have sides of 19, 16, and 16 units. Here we have two sides that are congruent. Triangles that have two congruent sides we call isosceles. This triangle in the middle has sides of 17, 4, and 19, all three different. Yep, hopefully you said scalene. Here we have a triangle that has three sides that are all 6 and 25/100ths. All three sides are the same. We name that kind of a triangle equilateral. And our bottom triangle here has sides of 15, 15, and 10. We've got two sides the same, which means we call that an isosceles triangle. Okay, so we said scalene, isosceles, scalene, isosceles, equilateral. Let's check to see how we did. Looks pretty good. Scalene, isosceles, equilateral. Nice work. We can also classify triangles by the measure of their angles. So sometimes you might hear triangles being named a right triangle, for example. We can call a triangle a right triangle if it has one angle that's a right angle. Okay, looks like this usually. And oftentimes we'll even see that little square to show us that it is a right angle. Acute triangles are triangles that have all three angles are acute. Okay, so if every angle in the triangle is an acute angle, then we can call that an acute triangle. Now, it's also can be isosceles. For example, this one here we know as isosceles because it has two angles that are equal, which means this side and this side will be the same length. It can be both acute and isosceles. When you have a triangle and it has one obtuse angle, now if you think about this for a moment, it can't have more than one obtuse angle or it won't work as a triangle. But if you have a triangle where one of the angles is obtuse, then we can name that an obtuse triangle. Now this triangle is also scalene. It is obtuse and scalene. We can classify it in more than one way. Here is what you should be writing in your notes today. Go to your next clean page, and our topic is types of triangles, so write that at the top. And we're going to put these 4 triangle names into your notes. And I strongly suggest that you also add a picture next to it, just to give you a visual reminder. Okay, so write these down. Right triangle is a triangle with one right angle. Could be scalene or isosceles, but it's not possible to be equilateral. An equilateral triangle cannot have a right angle. Scalene triangle, a triangle whose sides all have different lengths. No congruent sides or angles. isosceles triangle, a triangle that has at least two sides of the same length, so it will have at least two congruent sides and angles. Now notice how I said at least two? A lot of people don't realize this, but isosceles triangles can have more than two sides the same length, which means three sides the same length, which we know as an equilateral triangle. Yeah, it's kind of like that square rectangle thing. You know how we can say that all squares are rectangles, but not all rectangles are squares? Well, we can kind of say that about these triangles. All equilateral triangles are isosceles, but not all isosceles triangles are equilateral. Now, it's nice for you to know that, but really the most important thing for you to remember is that if we see a triangle with two sides the same length, we call that isosceles. And if we see a triangle whose sides all have the same length, we call that equilateral. It's a better way of naming the triangle. In an equilateral triangle, all sides and angles are congruent. Make sure you have this page here copied into your notes for class tomorrow.